All right, welcome to Frontline. It's 5 o'clock here on the East Coast. Here are the top 5 stories we didn't want you to miss. Florida is working to end all childhood vaccine mandates. Florida would be the first state to do this. West Coast governors now say that they'll establish their own vaccine guidelines. Okie doke. And a report says Eric Adams could actually drop out of the New York mayoral race to take a job in the Trump administration. 2 years ago, you never would have seen that coming. If Adams doesn't drop out, Zoran Kwame Mamdani could actually be the next mayor. These talks also involve Curtis Sliwa, and obviously Adams and him both deny this. Plus, Camp 47 is going to be the latest detention center used for illegals. This is located in Angola, Louisiana, the largest maximum security facility in the country. Now, more than half the inmates are serving life sentences, which is another reason to not have illegals there, and they might want to self-deport. And remember this, the Israeli official we keep updating you on, who was arrested in a child sex sting, appeared virtually for his court appearance today. The judge ordered Tom Alexandrovich to not have contact with minors and not use social media or apps for dating. The judge even questioned why he was allowed to fly back to Israel on a $10,000 bail. Plus, a UN report says Iran has increased its stockpile of enriched uranium to near weapons grade now. That was just before Israel attacked, and then Trump bombed Iran back to the Stone Age at their nuclear site. And a huge news for us, folks. We are moving to 6 p.m. Eastern starting on Monday, like this coming Monday. We're going to be at 6 p.m. But first, the fastest way to lose your country? Well, take a look at the UK. Let's do this. All right, today we witnessed probably the most staunch warning in history. Nigel Farage, the leader of Brexit, here testifying to our Congress at the invite of Jim Jordan in a staunch warning of the detriment of censorship and the loss of what free speech leads to.
I come from the land of Magna Carta. I come from the land that gave us the mother of parliaments, and it doesn't give me any great joy to be sitting in America and describing the really awful authoritarian situation that we have now sunk into.
We've covered a ton of examples of people being arrested for praying, posting online, or for simply saying, I love bacon. I mean, aside from the EU censorship laws, in the UK, under the 2023 Act, the Online Safety Act, they have completely eroded free speech, criminalizing native citizens for simply voicing any concern about mainly policy or the immigrants that are not respecting UK culture. And these provisions in that bill are where it gets really interesting. Here, this is from gov.uk, some of the most concerning things that are actually being criminalized there. Here, look at this. Under priority content, bullying, abusive, or hateful content. And there's a few other things in there, too. But if you think this sounds reasonable, no, we should stop that. If you like this idea, pay attention.
I don't doubt for a minute they're good intentions, but sometimes the road to hell is paved with those good intentions.
Look, if you think this will keep you safe or unoffended or make you more free or in any way enhance your life, you are completely ignorant of history, and you should never be allowed anywhere near governance, okay? But second, let me tell you why this is a horrible idea and how it always results in less freedom. Because it's all about who gets to decide what is bullying, abusive, or hateful content. We saw this here in America under COVID when anything the left didn't like was considered misinformation, and then they used emergency powers and government institutions to shut down free speech. Some free speech that now many people had wished they probably listened to today over foolish mainstream narratives around vaccines and masks and shutdowns. It's all about who is controlling what is called misinformation or hateful or dangerous or whatever. But in Great Britain, you don't just get shut down for it. They don't just take down the post. They actually throw you in jail for things that oppose political parties. Think about that. Even if they're true. Don't believe me? Here, look at this. Here's one of thousands of examples. James Harvey, a 22-year-old journalist, was arrested 5 days after attending an immigration protest where he allegedly said, deport them, send them home, and he called them, or allegedly called them, filthy foreigners. He's currently facing a trial this month, facing over 2 years in prison after being held and interrogated where they seized not only his stuff, but his girlfriend's electronic devices too. Ladies and gentlemen, scholars and even rebels, That is what happens when you give up your guns. This is what happens when you don't have a First Amendment that can't be preserved because you don't have a Second Amendment. You see, our founding fathers, they didn't come back from a hunting trip. They came back from liberating a nation from the exact oppression that Britain is seeing right now. That's why we have these things. We put in our Bill of Rights altogether to stop what you're seeing in the UK from ever happening here. Nigel is trying to warn the world of this. Can't say it in the UK because they'll go to jail. Because the danger is, again, who is defining what is harmful, hateful, or bullying? Because they can declare anything they want is harmful, hateful, or bullying.
If you're opposed to illegal immigration on a mass scale and the huge cost to the taxpayer and the risk to our communities, then and if you like the flag, our national flag, then apparently you're far right.
So that illegal immigration issue that was very informative to the election in 2024 in America, the same thing is happening in Europe? Is that accurate?
It's a very similar argument in many, many ways, and therefore the definition of far right, I think, now applies to about 2/3 of the British population.
So I think...
Yeah, and how long before they call it violence attributed to the far right, of course. And they criminalize it like they are now, essentially criminalizing an entire political party. Think about it. If you think this can't happen, they almost did it here.
Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic.
And if you're shaking your head, it's like, how could this happen? How did we get here? Because the modern left still has zero problem with what even the UK is doing.
There is a free speech crisis in America today, but there's no free speech crisis in Britain.
Oh, really? And the current leaders in the UK are no different.
The honourable member for Clacton is not here representing his constituencies in the house that he was elected to. No, he's flown to America to badmouth and talk down our country. And worse than that, Mr. Speaker, if you can believe it, he's gone there to lobby the Americans to impose sanctions on this country which will harm working people. You cannot get more unpatriotic than that.
He's referring to Nigel's testimony today. Instead of ensuring his people freedom of speech and legitimate concerns about being overrun with migrants, Keir Starmer, that guy right there, is criticizing a fellow member of his parliament, Nigel Farage, for coming here to America, just like they did during World War II, to beg for help to ensure freedom for the people of the UK who he represents. To beg for our help to stop them from making it a law that doesn't allow the criticism of a religion that openly wants to take over their country and impose wildly oppressive values.
But my worry is it may get worse, if I may quickly.
Yep.
Because the Labour government now are intending to pass a law that has a definition of Islamophobia. They're intending to put that into law. And that effectively will mean that criticism of a religion, mocking of a religion, would become an offence.
Yep. The UK right now is attempting, in some weird liberal assent to appeasement, wants to prevent criticism of a religion that thinks it's acceptable to take underage brides, oppress women, and deprive non-Muslims of rights. You see in the UK right now, you already can't have an honest debate about real issues. You're never going to solve anything, because facts and data and statistics either become illegal or suppressed. Difference of opinion, if you're in the minority, in Great Britain, it's become a crime, which, by the way, is in fact how a democracy works. So when the left says, we're protecting democracy, you better listen to them. Because in a democracy, the majority rules. Whatever the majority thinks becomes a law. The majority doesn't want you to say this or say that, well, then the minority can't do it. The majority wants to take the land of people who, let's just say, don't convert to Islam. Well, they can do that in a democracy. The majority wants to take underage brides, impose Sharia law, mandate burqas for women, whatever. In a democracy, they can do that. The minority has no say. And with Muhammad being the most common name in Great Britain for the last 2 years running, that is what people in the UK are rising up against. They're terrified of this. The idea that their culture is about to be criminalized and extinguished, and people like Keir Starmer don't see it. It can and is, in fact, on track to happen. That is a fact. It's not my opinion. If you think I'm full of it, I'd refer you to the story we did yesterday, where a man tweeted something critical about immigration from outside the UK, outside the country, and then was arrested upon arrival. Now, see, the modern left here in America loves to impose all these restrictions that they like when they're in charge, and then they sell it as some utopia of tolerance and acceptance, and we're stopping people from hurting people's feelings. But all of a sudden, they don't like it when they lose power, and they scream about their rights. Rights are only enshrined in a constitutional republic like we have here, where no matter who is in charge, we all have certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The right of free speech, property rights, representation, and so many more. As you see, look, as you see in Britain, the government will take those away in a second in the name of whatever their political whim is, just to maintain power, unless the people have the power. And that is why the most important right is to own guns, because the government should fear the people. The UK government doesn't fear its people. I mean, it should, because I think they're on the verge of a revolution again. Look, the good people of Britain right now are fed up. They're seeking the same constitutional republic we fought them to get 250 years ago, ironically enough. We need to let this be a warning to our own liberal tendencies here in America. The UK is where Democrats lead us to. And what worries me the most, how many times we've seen Europe's policies come to America and become our policies 5 to 10 years later. Socialized medicine. Now, over there, you wait 3-4 years to see a doctor, yet the majority of the Democrat Party here advocates it. Oh, it's a right, sure. Green energy. Germany and the UK dumped fossil fuels for green energy, nearly froze to death, and their prices tripled. Vast entitlement programs. That's the catalyst for most of this mass migration all over Europe. I mean, it happened here, too. Look, these fools in the towers over there in the UK Parliament see that as, oh, we're tolerant, while these migrants view it as conquering. And these native people of all these countries that are being overwhelmed are pushed aside, even raped, harassed, oppressed, and then arrested for calling it out. Europe is a barometer of what our modern left is trying to bring here. It's not a theory. It's a warning. Ohio Congressman and Chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, the man who invited Nigel Farage today, Jim Jordan. Sir, appreciate you being here. Fireworks.
You bet. Good to be with you.
Ominous warning, though, from Nigel Farage about, what could happen when you start limiting free speech.
Yeah, Carl, remember in the Biden administration a couple years ago that they tried to set up, well, they actually did. They set it up, the Disinformation Governance Board, as if a bunch of bureaucrats can tell you what you can say, what you can tweet, what you can post, what you can read, what's misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, a whole new term, malinformation. So they tried to do that, and a bunch of us, you and a bunch of others, we all raised a big issue about this, and we got that disbanded, thank goodness. Yeah. Well, now Europe has done, in essence, the same thing. They've done it legislatively through the Digital Services Act in the European Union, and in the UK, the Online Safety Act. And God bless Nigel, he's saying this went way too far. We all want to protect kids, but what this is what censorship always boils down to. It's government censoring their critics. You criticize the government, they're going to call it disinformation, hate speech, misinformation, and they're going to come after you with either civil penalties on tech companies who don't comply with the rules, or worse yet, criminal penalties for people who say things that the government thinks are offensive. And that's where we're at in Europe, and we don't want that coming here.
Oh, no. And well, thankfully, as I said, we have guns, so that is unlikely to come here, especially with people like you at the helm. All right, listen to Nigel, though. I mean, he was talking about the downfall of free speech and how it got there in UK today. Roll it.
We forgot about common law, the kind of law that you guys have always enjoyed too. We sort of gradually transferred to a European way of thinking. We incorporated a Human Rights Act, which kind of meant really that, as opposed to being born free, under a human rights regime, the state gives you your rights, for which you're supposed to be incredibly grateful, but they can take them away whenever they like. So we lost our bearings. The UK lost its way. It became obsessed about doing things a European way, countries, frankly, that don't have that history of liberty, freedom, and democracy that we do.
Congressman, what I don't understand is how people don't see this coming.
Yeah, I don't know, but it is scary. And I think it's actually maybe an understatement when you talk about the UK losing their way. In 2023, 12,183 individuals were arrested for offensive posts. things they said, for goodness. There's no direct saying that these cause some kind of violence or incitement to violence or, that kind of thing. Just offensive posts. They were arrested. And of course, we have just in the last couple days, the comedian who is Irish, when he was in the United States, posted something that some people found offensive, and he flies to UK, lands at Heathrow, and he gets arrested. So an Irishman for posting something in America gets arrested in England or in the UK for something that some people found offensive. Yeah. And he's a comedian, for goodness sake. That's how ridiculous it gets. And here's the scary part. It can apply to Americans. We already had the letter from the guy in the EU who sent Elon Musk a letter last August and said to Elon Musk, hey, we know you're going to be talking to the president in an interview. This is during the election, in an interview coming up on the platform X, your platform. So they write to an American about an American company, about an American election, and they say the reason we're writing is about events because there's comments about events that took place in the UK, which is a non-European Union country. So this is Europe trying to police everyone. It already has impacted Americans and American companies like X.
Yeah. Pound sand comes to mind when I think about that. I'm just never going to go to Great Britain ever. They'll throw me in jail as soon as I get off the plane. Congressman Jim Jordan, I appreciate you bringing all this to light today.
Thanks for all your good work, Carl. Take care.
Appreciate it. All right, let's talk to somebody who's affected by these policies. Nile Gardiner, director of the Margaret Thatcher Center for Freedom at the Heritage Foundation and former Margaret Thatcher foreign policy advisor. All right, look, when I was hearing some of this stuff today, I was just like, wow, I cannot believe that they went this far.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on the show today. And I was there actually listening to the hearing on Capitol Hill today. And I thought Nigel Farage was absolutely brilliant. He was superb. And he was speaking the truth. The situation in the UK right now is absolutely appalling. It's horrifying. It's frightening. You've had large numbers of people locked up for their tweets. And this is Orwellian suppression of freedom of speech. My former boss, Margaret Thatcher, would have been absolutely horrified by what's happening in the UK today under socialist Keir Starmer. And I'm glad that Congressman Jim Jordan has held this very important hearing today, highlighting what's happening actually in the United Kingdom, because American people need to know what's going on across the Atlantic. And they should be concerned as well.
Well, because it could come here.
Orwellian stuff will come over here to the United States as well.
Well, and look at the entire left side of the country. They call me a redneck every time I say this, but this is why guns are so important. It's the only thing standing in the way of stuff like this.
Yeah, I think that if you look at this authoritarianism that's happening not only in Britain but also across Europe as well, especially Western Europe. The left in America would dearly love to impose this kind of draconian authoritarianism here in the United States. They dearly love to lock up, actually, people for their tweets and for expressing their opinions and so on. And this is what the left is doing in Europe. You can be sure the lefties here in the United States actually want to do the same thing to American citizens. So the American people must never allow this kind of horrible authoritarianism to creep into the United States. This would be a fundamental threat, actually, to the American way of life and to the American people themselves.
A few seconds left now. Do you think that UK can turn this around, get these socialists out of their government, and actually save their country?
Oh, absolutely. I think the next general election, 2029, has to be said, will be a political revolution. I do think the socialists will be thrown out of power. The vast majority of British people want to see freedom of speech, freedom of thought, freedom of expression. They want to live in a free country.
Right.
They don't want to live in some kind of socialist dictatorship.
Yeah, well, respect. I probably still won't go there because it's so close to Europe. But Nile, for your sake, I hope everything gets sorted out over there. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Coming up, HHS workers apparently not big fans of Maha, so I don't really care. Maybe we should just get rid of him. Trump is obviously facing criticism also on the Epstein files. What the president had to say about that today. I am so confused and bummed by this because the White House is saying that releasing more of the Epstein files and helping Thomas Massie would be a hostile act. Something seems weird here. But when Marjorie Taylor Greene and Ro Khanna are working together on something, I want to know more about this. Okay, earlier today, while the Epstein survivor press conference was happening in D.C., Trump did his own press conference when the meeting obviously happened with the Polish president. And this is what he had to say about it.
I understand that we were subpoenaed to give files, and I understand we've given thousands of pages of files. And I know that no matter what you do, it's going to keep going. And I think it's enough, because I think we should talk about the greatness of our country and the success that we're having. That's what we should be talking about, not the Epstein hoax.
Unless this is some weird play to get Democrats to call for the release of it, which maybe, I don't know, who knows. But like the survivors are now saying they have their own list to release.
Us Epstein survivors have been discussing creating our own list. We know the names. Many of us were abused by them. Now, together as survivors, we will confidentially compile the names we all know.
Now we're talking. They announced that Trump is not on that list, too, by the way. So I'm still unclear. I don't understand why Trump is avoiding this.
With the attention on President Trump, with these questions around a pardon, did anybody see or hear of the president himself doing anything inappropriate as it related to Jeffrey Epstein?
No.
John Jordan, attorney, and Doug Burns, former federal prosecutor. John, what do you make of this?
Well, I think the Democrats want to keep this alive, and Trump's enemies certainly do. And it's Thomas Massie, who's been a thorn in the president's side, voted against the president on the big, beautiful bill, and Ro Khanna of California want to keep this front and center. Remember, President Trump is working to primary Thomas Massie of Kentucky. So they want to keep this alive. There's no evidence the president did anything wrong. You look at a lot of the victims, I think that they are sympathetic to Democrats generally. So I think that agenda should be checked. But this smells of politics to me in a big way.
But Doug, the other thing, too, is like these victims are going to come up with their own list. Does that give them any grounds to start prosecuting people, statute of limitations, or is it just, I mean, there are theories that this could destabilize the entire power structure of D.C.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty good at guessing after 40 years, and I'm guessing that that was more of a soundbite, attention-getting thing, because you had Alan Dershowitz and David Schoen, and the key to those two gentlemen is that both were in the case, okay? And they both went on multiple media segments and said that there's no list. Now, there's two overwhelming knockout punch inferences. If we were sitting in conference rooms as lawyers, John, myself, and others, number one, for the past 4 years, nobody said anything about this case, okay? That's overwhelming. So why is it important now, today? That's
it's always been important for us. And the binders that the White House gave said phase 1. So I'm assuming there's a phase 2, but we haven't seen that.
And number two, sorry, if they had something on Trump, it would have come out. Are you kidding me?
100%. 100%. All right, so I want to get this. I got a minute, left. Congress. Sure. Look, you remember this New Jersey Democrat, Monica McIver? Thanks to 5 Republicans, though, it's been rejected to, have her censured in the House after being indicted by a federal grand jury in June on criminal counts after she visited that detention center you see right there and resulted in like a physical altercation with a law enforcement officer. She's obviously pled not guilty, but imagine the insane press if this had been the other side, John.
Well, yeah, this is, especially with the evidence so clear cut. She was claiming that she was engaging in congressional oversight. Well, that's bunk. That is not what congressional oversight is. That is showing up there to try to get headlines to get in front of a camera, and assaulting or battery on a federal agent is a federal crime, as she is finding out. But that is not congressional oversight, and that's important to understand.
Doug, real quick to you. I mean, look, they booted, the Republicans booted their own guy over this, and they can't get together to do that for her?
Hypocrisy and double standards, Carl, that's all it is.
I mean, it really is. George Santos is just sitting there shaking his head right now. All right, Doug, John, appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
All right, some news here from Newsmax itself. Folks, Newsmax Broadcasting, the company that owns this network and other media, filed a lawsuit today in federal court against Fox News and the Fox Corporation. Now, the Newsmax lawsuit was filed in federal court in Florida, in the Southern District of Florida, actually. Newsmax alleges that Fox has engaged in illegal activities to block Newsmax and other networks from appearing on cable and pay TV systems around the country. Now, Newsmax states this is a direct violation of the federal law that took into antitrust action today against these moves by Fox to block their fair competition. In its suit, Newsmax said that Fox's actions had led to higher cable prices for cable consumers and blocked alternative viewpoints from appearing to millions of Americans. Now, Newsmax also alleges that Fox had engaged in other activities unbecoming of a major news network, including paying online smear campaigns aimed at Newsmax and its executives. This is an important case, and it's going to affect American media, not just us and democracy, for years to come. We will be following this on Newsmax and updating you as we go on, but we urge you to go to newsmax.com and read about the lawsuit and the complaint that we as a company filed today. Please check it out today, newsmax.com. Coming up, RFK is making America healthy again, so why are his HHS officials demanding he resign? Well, because they're intolerable libs. That and more. RFK obviously trying to make America healthy again, but apparently health officials don't want that. 1,000 current and former HHS workers wrote a letter this week demanding that RFK resign, saying, "We swore an oath to support and defend the United States Constitution and serve the American people." Right. "Our oath requires us to speak out when the Constitution is violated and the American people are put at risk. Thus, we warn the President, Congress, and the public that Secretary Kennedy's actions are compromising the health of this nation, and we demand Secretary Kennedy's resignation." All right, shut up. Look, they should all be fired immediately. Like, do not pass go. Get the heck right out the door. If I publicly declared to have my boss fired, I would be out of here. Virginia Allen, host of the Daily Signal podcast. Tony Katz, host of nationally syndicated Tony Katz Today. Tony, you can't do this and keep your job.
Well, when you are a Democrat, a leftist, a progressive, there's another job just waiting for you. There's a guarantee that you're going to find another place to land.
It's called Starbucks.
But when you're ideological and you believe wholeheartedly in this idea that somehow what you're doing is righteous and good, but you don't pay attention to the fact that you told us we had to stay 6 feet away from each other. And grandma didn't get to say goodbye to her husband of 60 years, and he died alone and afraid during COVID. You told us we had to wear masks, and you told our children to be petrified of being with their friends or going outdoors. You don't have any credibility with us. And until they learn that, they can't just force it on us. Americans don't have faith and they don't have trust. You know what they have trust in? A guy who said, hey, these dyes in our food are making our kids fat. Maybe we should get rid of the dyes. And mom said, yeah, let's get rid of the dyes. That's tangible. They can connect with that.
Right, exactly. And when you have a guy in BDSM on pro-HIV magazines, like, I don't really want to listen to you about vaccination schedules. Virginia, Putin, Xi, Kim Jong-un, they're all having this big powwow this week, and they were caught on a hot mic discussing something wild. Roll this.
With the development of biotechnology, human organs can be continuously transplanted, and people can live younger and younger, and even achieve immortality. Organ transplants, predictions are, this century, there's a chance of also living to 150.
They're talking about living forever. Yeah, G's the guy I want living forever.
Yeah, really. It gives you such an insight into who these men are. They think of themselves essentially as gods, that they can live forever. It doesn't matter, that they can overcome physical limitations. I think these are one of the moments where you're actually like, okay, maybe the Lord was intervening here and just giving the world a little bit of a window into how cocky and arrogant these people are, that they actually think they can cheat death. But I do feel for whoever that was, the man or woman who left that hot mic on what is essentially 3 dictators, probably a rough day for them.
He's probably executed. All right, so Tony, the thing that they say never happens, for the 3rd time this week, has happened again. A Connecticut city councilman is now accused of taking incomplete absentee ballots from voters. Alfredo Castillo allegedly did this in the 2023 Democrat mayoral primary that, if you remember, a judge ordered a new election there. And of course, he refused to answer questions from local reporters after this court appearance. But this is the 3rd time he's gone to court over just absolute fraud, voter fraud.
So your point is, I think, the one that's well taken. I hope that guy doesn't get too winded running up those stairs. The fundamental issue here is that we're told it doesn't happen. Admittedly, in-person voter fraud is outrageously rare. The problem is that we, the rational people, want things like voter ID and oppose mail-in voting to ensure there's as little possible voter fraud as possible. And what the political left has said is, how dare you? We are on the right side of rationality. Some people like to say to be on the right side of history. That's a very cliche, odd expression. But we are on the right side of normal, the right side of rational. You want voter fraud to be as little as possible, and the only amount you'll accept is zero. When you see a party accept voter fraud as somehow it happens, then you know they're okay with it happening.
And that's because the vote that doesn't get counted or is miscounted could be mine, and I went to war to make sure my vote counts. What do you think about this, Virginia?
No, this is critical. I mean, this is why President Trump has said he's really considering, okay, do we try and get rid of or somehow limit in a really significant way mail-in ballots? Because we know, where does the majority of this voter fraud come from? It comes from absentee, it comes from mail-in ballots. The Heritage Foundation has a bank that tracks this, that looks really specifically at, okay, what are the proven cases? And we know there's hundreds of proven cases across the country.
Yeah.
This remains a very important issue to American voters.
Yeah, no, it really is. It's interesting to see. Well, Virginia, Tony, appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, folks, again, some exciting news here. I'm pumped about it. Frontline, this show will be moving to 6 p.m. starting this Monday, so that's when you can catch me after your commute. The Record with Greta Van Susteren will move to 4 p.m. The Chris Salcedo Show will be right before this at 5 p.m. in this slot. You can find us right here starting Monday, 6 p.m. I am hype. Oh, man. Coming up, the U.S. military destroying a drug boat, killing 11 suspected Venezuelan TDA narco-terrorists. President Trump sending Maduro a clear message that he will do what needs to be done to protect the American people and turn your boats into scrap metal.
On the boat, you had massive amounts of drugs. We have tapes of them speaking. It was massive amounts of drugs coming into our country to kill a lot of people. You see the bags of drugs all over the boat. And they were hit, obviously. They won't be doing it again. And I think a lot of other people won't be doing it again when they watch that tape.
This is how you fight crime. This is how you stop it before it gets here. The White House sharing an awesome video of a U.S. military strike that blew apart a Venezuelan drug boat in the South Caribbean, killing nearly a dozen suspected Tren de Aragua narco-terrorists. Finally, a president that puts America's safety first and doesn't really care what the left says. Promises made, promises kept. Former superintendent of the Chicago PD, Jody Weis. All right, Jody, this to me is like, yeah, once it hits the streets here, it's real hard to track down in like little, 50-gram bags. Why don't we just blow up the boat before it gets here?
Yeah, wasn't that a great way to be preventive, proactive policing, if you would, Carl? That was nice when he designated the TDA as a terrorist group, which gives them the authority to take those acts. So I was really happy to see that. That could have prevented a lot of lives from being lost over here from drug abuse.
Yeah, you're talking thousands of lives worth of drugs on that thing that could be killed or taken or destroyed. All right, Trump is also floating the idea to sending the National Guard to New Orleans next. Roll this.
We're making a determination now. Do we go to Chicago or do we go to a place like New Orleans, where we have a great governor, Jeff Landry, who wants us to come in and straighten out a very nice section of this country that's become quite tough, quite bad.
Yeah, maybe just do it in the places that the governors want us.
Yeah, why? In some ways, as though, I have a lot of allegiance to Chicago. I haven't been the superintendent there, and they could definitely use the help, and the people want the help there. But at some point, if you've got a governor that wants to work with the federal government, it makes everything a whole lot easier. So maybe that's a bargaining chip to maybe convince Mr. Pritzker that the federal help is here if you want to bring it in. And they need it, Carl. I mean, it's absurd to me when they're fighting at refusing to bring in help. There are 2,000 police officers down. Mm-hmm. They just had a literally shooting gallery in over this past week, and there was a spot, machine gun fire erupted at 1:10 in the morning, 5 people shot. Yeah. Another location, 7 people shot. So to say we don't need help, what are you doing? Are you saying those numbers are good? So you know what? I can certainly under Trump saying, you know what? Maybe it's just easier. I'll go to Louisiana and work with New Orleans, and we'll make a difference there. And then maybe Governor Pritzker and Mayor Johnson will realize, you know what? Maybe we should have taken President Trump up on his offer.
Yeah, no, true. And Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, this guy is the worst. He's blaming the violence in his city on red states. Roll this.
We will never be able to end gun violence in Chicago as long as the president continues to allow tens of thousands of guns to be trafficked into our state and our city. The vast majority of guns do not come from Chicago. They are not made in Cook County. They are not bought in the state of Illinois. These guns come from red states.
This was, in fact, fact-checked online, and most of the guns that are seized in Chicago are, in fact, purchased in Illinois, some of which are straw purchases, which is illegal. But I'm going to say something controversial, which is what I do, and I don't really care. But Johnson has failed to look at the data here, sir, and it's costing lives. Did you know in the U.S., if you remove the gun crime from black and Hispanic people, where the blacks committed gun crimes at a rate of 27.5 per 100,000, Hispanics at a rate of 5.5 per 100,000, and where white people committed a crime at 2 per 100,000. If guns were really the problem, explain to me why the 3 states with the lowest gun murder rate in America are all constitutional carry states: New Hampshire, Vermont, and Maine. And then explain to me why the mayor of Baltimore went ahead and then did youth programs that not only kept black families together, but also gave youths a purpose and a pathway to a job and skills, and it reduced gun crime by half.
Yeah, Carl, you highlighted this. You nailed this. You look at the numbers in Chicago. Almost 80% of the victims of gun violence, of murders, are black. Over 80% of the known offenders in Chicago are black. So you've got black kids shooting other black kids. And this is exactly why you need to get the federal government in there, be it either federal resources, bring it to the National Guard, be it whatever.
Right.
But these are the people that are being killed. And it's disgraceful that you have a governor and a mayor who are turning their back on the very people that need their help the most. It's disgusting. Yeah. So interesting numbers you just threw up there. It says a very clear message of where the help needs to be.
Yeah, you'd think Brandon Johnson would have been the guy, since that's what he ran on. Jody, appreciate it.
Yeah, Carl, thank you.
Coming up, hunting season is nearly here. I'll share the facts that prove why deer hunters are your friends and might be saving lives next. The best time of the year is among us. Hunting season starts for me in 13 days. Who's counting? Which means I'm about to fill my fridge. And anyone who wants to criticize hunters, consider the facts first. There are roughly 36 million deer in the nation, whose population has more than doubled since the 70s, when most states developed comprehensive hunting licensing. I, for one, think licenses are unconstitutional, stupid, and shouldn't be here, but that's the result of government. Over 2 million deer vehicle collisions occur annually, though, resulting in nearly 60,000 injuries and about 500 deaths, just from deer alone. I'm not talking about elk or anything else. The top 5 states that suffer from animal car collisions being West Virginia, Montana, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. But the damage doesn't stop there. Deer collisions cost the economy roughly $10 billion in losses annually. So, folks, get your guns and your bows ready. Let's get to hunting, because the hunters are the good guys. Jeff Sturgis, owner of Whitetail Habitat Solutions. Sir, you know, a lot of people demonize hunters, but we're not the bad guys here.
Not at all. From building a habitat to actually attract populations, build populations, but also manage them.
Yeah. Well, you know, obviously Whitetail Habitat Solutions, your thing, you consult and help people build the perfect deer hunting property. Talk to us about how important this is for you and to pass this down in generations, because we've been losing hunters over the years.
You know, it's really a family thing. You know, we involve our kids in it, but it's about building the habitat. So when we're building a habitat, it's not just for deer either. It's birds, butterflies, bees, rabbits, grouse, pheasants, turkey nesting, poult. So we can really take advantage of that entire process. When I find people get involved in the process, they bring kids out hunting, become a family experience, get good friends, then it really is a recipe for retaining hunters, recruiting new hunters. And let's face it, hunters are the ones that are not only managing the deer, but helping build this habitat for all the wildlife.
Yeah, I love that there's a bunch of people sitting in 60-story concrete towers telling people like you and I that we should care for the environment for when you've planted probably how many thousand acres of fields in your day?
Oh, yeah, and worked with 1,500 clients across the country helping build their habitat. It's really important. You know, a lot of these anti-hunting groups, they're not the ones that are actually building the habitat. They talk about it. They might have a little fundraiser, but hunting dollars are what supports all of this habitat. So thank a hunter, and unless, you know, those hunters out there will keep you from, I think West Virginia was at 1 in 40 people, 1 in 40 odds of hitting a deer. That's pretty crazy.
That's insane. I will say, too, now that, I've been rated by the VA at 100% disabled for a variety of injuries, check your state if you're a disabled veteran. You might get free hunting. As we go into this, if you had one message for people real quick in about 30 seconds on why we should continue the hunting tradition, what is that?
Well, to me, it's a way of life. It's family, it's fun. And let's face it, getting kids outdoors and hunting, whether you're shooting something or not, it's really an incredible opportunity to help people, kids, new hunters, experience the outdoors. And there's all kinds of game to hunt. And so when you're taking an active participation in hunting, you're improving the habitat, you're building populations, and let's face it, you're managing it too, so people aren't hitting those critters on the road.
Yeah, well, look, if you need help with a property, Whitetail Habitat Solutions, man, your YouTube videos basically helped me build my entire dream property for that. So Jeff Sturgis,
appreciate watching, bro.
Thank you very much, sir. Happy hunting. All right, folks, we got an I-Spotted Newsmax sent to us by Cole Schmidt. He's a 9-year-old from Gig Harbor, Washington today. He starts first grade, and his favorite anchor is not me. It's Rob Finnerty. Thanks. But you're all right, Cole. Hope you become a future Newsmax anchor or maybe even contributor one day. We'll see. Well, before we go, we like to commemorate the life of a Vietnam War hero who passed away last week. Stay tuned. A viewer sent this in, and I acknowledged it, and I said, you know what? Let's talk about this, because last week on Wednesday, August 29th, Vietnam War veteran and former California Congressman Randy Duke Cunningham died at the age of 83. Now, why is this important? Well, Randy, who was born the day after Pearl Harbor, joined the U.S. Navy in 1967. He completed 113 combat missions and achieved ace status. That's after shooting down five Vietnam MiG-21s, making him the first ace of the Vietnam War, according to NBC, that is. He pled guilty, obviously, after that as a congressman to receiving illegal gifts from defense contractors, but that doesn't take away the fact that he shot down 5 enemy aircraft. If you don't know how big, there's almost no air-to-air combat. Randy earned the Navy Cross, 2 Silver Stars, 15 Air Medals, and a Purple Heart. That's going to do it for us tonight, folks. We'll see you same time, same place tomorrow. Remember, Monday, 6 p.m.